a profitable conversation. Here we go. What is up? I'm Joshua Prophet. Welcome to Profitable Conversations. So excited to have you on today. The comments on the comment section, that's what we're getting into. Make sure that you like for the algorithm. Let's get into this content.
Welcome to a new chapter of the comment section, and I am your new host, Reagen Conrad.
So that is Reagen Conrad, and she is now the new host of the comment section, which was formerly hosted by, let me turn this off. Thank you. There we go. Which is formerly hosted by Brett Cooper, who everyone has come to know and to love. Actually, 4.5 million people have subscribed because Brett Cooper has been putting out amazing content. They fall in love with her personality and the personal brand of who she is. Now she's being replaced by Reagen Conrad, who I guess she's going by Reagen Conrad now because it's more of a stage name, right? Her last name, I believe, is Rohrbach. I think that is her married last name, and I think Conrad is probably her maiden name. But they're doing this whole rebranding. You can actually even see right here, if I grab my pen, you can see right there, they've already replaced the Brett Cooper with the RC, and it is, in fact, a new era at the comment section. So as we listen more to Reagen, I want you to ask yourself, does this feel authentic to you? Because like I just mentioned, we all fell in love with, Brett Cooper and, her bubbly personality and, how she portrayed and gave us, what was happening online. And now she's being replaced by someone who's seemingly just copying all of her mannerisms rather than being authentic to who Reagen Conrad truly is.
So while I may feel like a stranger to most of you watching this video, I've been behind the scenes for years getting to know all of you.
And real quick, I'm going to let it play more, but she says, while I feel like a stranger, and that's the strange thing of this whole situation is when you watch her, it doesn't feel like a stranger. It feels like you're trying to be Brett Cooper, even though we know that Brett Cooper has moved on. But not only that, we know from, past experiences that you are, or just past knowledge, that you have produced for Brett. You've been around Brett. You're her best friend, as well as you were her maid of honor. And so we know if anybody would be able to copy somebody like, a Brett Cooper, it would be somebody like you. But what we fall in love with on YouTube, and I'll get to this in my main point in a second, is you. That's why it's called YouTube. We fall in love with the people who are producing the content and not the entity or the show itself.
Now, over the last few weeks, the internet, as we so often cover on the show, has been the internet. And the comment sections have certainly been comment sectioning away. I mean, it's literally part of my job to read your comments, and so I know what's being said. And the one thing that is rightfully concerning many of you is the thought that Brett may have been forced out. I can assure you that that is not the case, and it is simply untrue. I mean, as Brett said herself in her final episode, and I would highly encourage every single one of you who has not yet seen that video to go watch that video and also go watch and support and love on anything that Brett does coming up in the future, because I know that it will be amazing. It was Brett's decision to leave the show and move on to a new adventure, which she is very excited about, and all of you should be very excited for what's to come.
So that's the first time. And they keep saying that it was Brett's decision to leave the show because the internet, as she said, has been interneting, and their BS detector is on, and they're like, hey, something's not adding up here. Even in, Brett's last episode of the comment section, it doesn't seem like somebody who is, having a bittersweet moment, but is excited for what's to come because she has decided to make the move. It feels like somebody who is, very saddened by the situation and the events that have previously, played out. And this is just like, well, goodbye. I'll see you in my next venture, right? She doesn't seem excited, right, to move forward while at the same time being grateful. It's just, you can kind of see just like the sadness and almost like this bit of frustration that she's holding back. But again, the narrative that's being run is that it's Brett's decision to leave. It's Brett's decision to leave. You'll probably hear it again.
In saying all of that, It is an enormous honor for me, truly beyond my wildest dreams and anything that I could have ever hoped for, to have been given the honor to carry on this show. I care about the show so much too, and so I am so excited to keep the show moving forward. All that to say that I have learned so much from Brett over these last 3 years.
You've learned so much that you decided to copy her exact cadence and the manner in which she speaks, as well as like even the way she, brings her hands together. And there's nothing wrong. So me and my brother, best friend, he was just my best man at my wedding. There's a lot of different mannerisms and things that we do very similarly. And in fact, probably almost identical, right? Because we're always in close proximity to each other and we grew up together. We have the same influences. But Jacob is his own person. And like if you were in a room with him and you were in a room with me, and we looked exactly the same, you'd probably be able to tell the difference in the way that we go about each other, even though there's similarities. You'd be like, oh yeah, they're definitely brothers. They're definitely related. They definitely have a close relationship and bond that's evidenced by the influence on both ways in the way they act. But they both have this individualism they're both an individual, right? They both have their own personality that is set apart. And that's the thing here, why everybody's kind of up in arms. It's like, we don't care that Reagen is, the replacement. Now, how the events played out to lead up to this may be a little shady, but that's not the main issue that she is replacing Brett as the new host. The issue is that it's almost like you're trying to be an off-brand version of Brett rather than being yourself. Like Brett built this whole platform based off of her personality and, the fans loving the energy that she brought to every single episode. And you're just trying to copy that energy rather than, bringing a similar energy in your own way.
Most profoundly, though, she taught me how to be fearless.
Yeah. And so let's just talk about this YouTube and podcast space, right? It's personal brands over big corporations, right? Again, YouTube, when you're listening to podcasts, you are there to hear what your favorite creators or favorite hosts have to say, or the guests that they bring on, how that conversation and that dynamic is going to play out. Right? It's very different from mainstream media where everything is very scripted, right? And even if a primetime host moves on or gets fired, they just replace it with another primetime host. And yeah, it's a different person, but it's basically the same content at the end of the day, right? It's, probably the same people that are laying out and writing writing the scripts and approving, everything that's going on. But with YouTube, you can really be authentic. Authenticity rules. And that's what's seemingly missing in this situation, which brings us to the Daily Wire aspect of this. Like, people, and from personal experience, watch the Daily Wire to kind of escape this mainstream pollution. Basically everything that I just alluded to, like the scriptness or the way things are scripted out, and just the, all the politics of it. Like the Daily Wire in their venture to be, put out these podcast shows, like you really get to know the host and it feels authentic and their voices are unapologetic and each person is unique in that way. And so now when you have somebody who moves on, but the show must go on and you replace them with a host, it's like, okay, it's fine. I got you. You've been good at, developing talent and finding talent. But in the same way that you found that talent and they were able to connect with the audience because of their authenticity, that's what we want in the replacement hosts. But what we're getting is seemingly an off-brand copy of what was Brett Cooper, at least in her role of that. And so a lot of things that we keep hearing that keep coming up in this situation as well is how the Daily Wire has bad internal culture. And that is far outweighing their quest to be counterculture, which is on their website, as, part of, their, the things that they set out to do is to be counterculture, to be different from what the mainstream media is propagating. But yet it feels like you're employing some of these mainstream tactics that, we, came to you for, which is adding to that mainstream pollution. And so this brings up a question that I want you to think about before we watch this next clip. Should a company's internal culture reflect its values? I want to know your initial thoughts in the comment section. My initial thoughts is, well, absolutely. That's integrity, right? But what happens so often in corporate America is if it doesn't affect the bottom line, right, then it doesn't matter if it's, going to reflect well on the values or if it's going to strengthen our internal culture, it's not going to get done, right? Because what happens a lot, and I can speak from personal experience in corporate America, is, they'll put out surveys or they'll host like these little town hall meetings and say, well, what can we do better? And everybody will voice their opinions and they'll go, great, thank you for, voicing your opinions. And then they'll go back and they'll check the box and say, we hosted a town hall and we were there for our people and we sat down with the people. But then they don't implement anything that the people say unless it affects their bottom line, right? And that shouldn't be so. That's not very integral, right? And I'm not saying every country is like that, but I'm saying largely in corporate America, in a capitalistic society, that's how things often play out. So I want you to think about this question. Leave your thoughts in the comments as we watch this next clip.
Into now, but basically I made that video and then Jeremy just circulated a letter around the Daily Wire internally that obviously leaked. I have a copy of. I'm sure lots of have a copy of. Ooh. Yeah, and I didn't want to like put the whole text up. I'm pretty sure that Jeremy meant for it to leak. Like he's not totally dumb.
Yeah.
But in it he clearly claims in it directly that Brett Cooper wanted to leave and that this is Brett Cooper's idea and they wish her well. And that is a flat out lie.
And so again, it keeps coming up. And this was actually before Brett announced that she was leaving, is like this podcast came out. And so it was very interesting that they had this podcast. A couple of days later, Brett announces that she's leaving. And then a couple of days later, we're here and Reagen has entered into a new era of the comment section.
Is like directly from sources that are very familiar with the matter. That is not the case. And Brett Cooper cannot say anything. And they're forcing her out while they try to play PR to make it look like, we're just trying to do it, which is exactly the picture that Crowder painted of the Daily Wire, that Candace painted of the Daily Wire, that everyone that has worked at the Daily Wire,
And so before he says what he is about to say, really quickly, first of all, he's about to drop some pretty explicit language, so fair warning there. I lost my train of thought. Let's just hear them out.
In my Instagram comments right now, there's like 4 former Daily Wire employees that are all being like, yeah, it's a fucking shithole. Like, this is exactly the culture that I was talking about. I can corroborate all of this. They're just out there on Instagram saying these things because that's the culture they have.
Yeah, so super interesting. That brings us to, the frustration of the matter, right? There seems to be a lack of transparency and truth from a company that is all about free speech and seeking truth. Like, those are things that you'll hear them talk about all the time. And not that I'm definitely with them on those fronts, right? But in this particular situation, it seems like from the company itself, seems to be kind of a lack of transparency and truth. And hopefully more details are revealed, but they're kind of just going on like everything is okay. And we're like, wait a minute, like everything was cool about a week ago. Like, why is Brett just all of a sudden out? Like, is the relationship actually good? They're trying to make it seem like it's amicable, but was it really? And the other frustrating thing is like Reagen just kind of feels like an industry plant. And what I mean by that is if you hear this term a lot in, the entertainment space, like whether it's acting or more so in music, where you have a rapper or an artist that just blows up out of nowhere and you're like, oh, like their music is decent, but I never even heard of this person. Like they didn't really, go through the ranks and earn, their number one hit. They just were number one on the charts all of a sudden, right? And that's because they were industry plant. It's like big, one of the big major labels or record labels were like, all right, we're picking you. You're going to be our person, but you got to do this, this, and this, and this. You got to make music like this. And they put a ton of money into them and they blow up, right? And that's kind of what feels like is happening with Reagen. Not that they're going to pour a ton of money into her and she's going to blow up, but it's like they're basically just handing her the ranks and trying to manufacture the same feeling that, has, brought them a lot of views and helped them to, sustain this podcast dominancy in the right wing space. But I think people are, feeling like there's something not adding up right here. And not that I'm saying to go boycott the Daily Wire or anything. I think the talents that they have on there, I think they all bring a unique perspective. I used to listen to a lot of those guys daily. Now I just listen to them every now and then because I try to get a good mix of what everybody is saying, not only in the right wing, but, people in center and sometimes even on the left, even though sometimes there's so much I can tolerate from those people over there because they're just ideas I just fundamentally don't agree with in a lot of different ways. And so here is the big question before I dismiss for the day. Do you think Brett Cooper was in fact forced out? Now, there is a great website called Reddit, and Reddit was Redditing, just like the internets. Within the interneting, Reddit's going Reddit. And they found some compelling evidence that suggests that Brett Cooper was in fact forced out. And one of the people, I guess, that is subscribed to your Reddit threads, I don't know what you call your people over there because I'm not active in that world. He made a YouTube video basically about the findings. I thought it was very compelling. So let's take a look at that.
No matter how many acting classes you take or watch Brett's old videos, you will never be Brett. On December 10th, 2024, only a few hours after Brett dropped her last video, Diane Cooper, Brett's mom, confirms the rumors on Reagen's latest Instagram post. Brett Cooper did leave the Daily Wire on bad terms, and her friend Reagen did push her out and did get offered a buttload of money to accept the job, and things are not good.
Now that is, very heavy accusations, especially without saying allegedly, all right? And so we're looking at this from the point of view that this could be true. And so I'm not endorsing everything he says, but this is something unique that may help us put some of the puzzle pieces together. Continue, Roman.
Is here on the subreddit on the r/Brett Cooper. On Reagen's most recent post on Instagram, somebody commented, "No matter how many acting classes you take or watch Brett's old videos, you will never be Brett. It's sad that you took the money and snubbed your best friend. I hope the amount of money DW offered was worth your friendship with Brett. You lost a good one." And so the video goes on, and apparently Diane Cooper, Cooper's mom, liked that comment, sort of verifying that, yes, like she's a horrible friend and she threw away a really good friendship with somebody that a lot of people like. And I 100% believe that there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes. And if you look at some other videos, I'm surprised that Matt Walsh is still there. It looked like on one of the town halls that they had, it looked like Matt Walsh was sort of drifting into some territory that the other people in the Daily Wire, mainly Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, it didn't seem like they were too comfortable with that and they kind of shut him down. My bet is that if there is going to be another person who leaves, it's going to be Matt Walsh. I wish the best for him. I know he has a pretty big family and he's the man of the house. He needs to take care of his family. I think that people like Brett Cooper and Candace Owens, they have a little bit more leeway when it comes to their career and taking larger risks because they have men in their lives that should be doing pretty well and everything. Matt Walsh is the man. He has to take care of his family.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard of anything like that where it seemed like maybe there's some more people that might be on their way out. But in the case of Matt Walsh, like there's probably more at stake with him leaving, even though he's obviously a big enough personality. All of them on that lineup are big enough to go out and do their own thing and be fine, or big enough to just go get picked up by another company podcast company who's, and do the same thing that they're doing at the Daily Wire. Right. But it's just a matter of, well, do I want to leave the comfort? They're settled down or in Nashville. Like, do I want to uproot my life in that way if it's necessary? Right. And for the most part, it's not. And we don't even know if the Matt Walsh thing is true. I think he's just kind of speculating. But I'd be interested to know, people who have, been keeping up with this or more regularly watch the Daily Wire, like, is there seemingly some tension? Because for the most part, I haven't seen anything in the few clips and things that I've seen. So interesting point, though.
I think his situation is a little bit more sensitive. That's it. I mean, I think the comment section is done for the most part. I don't think anybody is going to stick around. And I mean, maybe they can. Maybe they lose a lot of people, and then they start to gain a new fan base that likes Reagen and everything, although I don't think Reagen has nowhere near the amount of charm that Brett Cooper has. I mean, it's just the fact that Brett Cooper has a charm to her.
Yeah, and that's why people like her. It's this charm, this charisma that draws us into the persona that is Brett Cooper, right? And so no matter how much you try to emulate that, you're still not Brett Cooper unless you are Brett Cooper. Right. And so
doesn't seem
making good points here. Yeah, he's making great points. And so here's the verdict on Reagen. She just seems like a manufactured knockoff. And this is not really a shot at her, right? It's more of a shot at like the Daily Wire. The rumor is that they gave her acting classes so that she could mimic the mannerisms and the speech cadence of Brett Cooper, because they're trying to sustain this lightning in a bottle that they were able to capture for 3 years. But what they need to do is just to build upon the base and the foundation that's already there, right? With somebody who's just as authentic and who's just as personable as Brett. And could that be Reagen? Like, it could be, right? But we don't know, because it seems like she's only just copying Brett, right? And last thing, I really hope that she finds like her own voice and her own spin to the show. Of course, the show and the way that it's set up is always going to have the cuts with the YouTube cuts with the 3-camera setup, which is fine. And her like looking around, like I think it's fine. I don't think that's the issue. The editing's not the issue. It's the personality and the way she is presenting the show, right? The presentation is everything. And that's what is, feels like it's lacking, at least for me. But I feel like a lot of people are sharing the same sentiments as well. Love to know your thoughts on this whole thing. Before we get out of here, I'm going to get into a prof tip to leave you with. Actually, I do not have it. So that's my bad. I forgot to load it up on the graphics. But this has been a lot of fun kicking it with you guys on the late in the afternoon, right? Just trying to turn out some more content for you guys, finally in a space and in a place where maybe I can just go live very often throughout the week and do like these little shows that are just focused on one specific topic rather than trying to do one big show on like a Monday where we're going over all the topics from the past week. We're still going to do that, have profitable conversations with, Kenya and I believe the Conscious Outlet is going to have a show this weekend. So Miracle and Allen will be back in action. And yeah, just stay tuned for more content. If you like what we're doing here at Quality Entertainment, we're on a mission to promote practical religion. And so we, intertwine faith, culture, and relationships. And we're, just trying to promote good ideas that drive or that are based on biblical ethics. And so if you rock with that, consider subscribing, because we got a lot more content coming your way. Thank you again for stopping by. And until next time, Remember to be blessed.